Welcome to Conversations with Craig. I'm your host, Craig Lee. I've worked with many leaders throughout my career. I have learned from some wonderful mentors, and in turn I've helped a range of people as they grow and evolve professionally. Join me as I shine a light on leaders who influence others to deliver outcomes that make our society a better place. These leaders are candid about the fun and difficult times over their career journeys. You'll also note they are all passionate about their work. So whether you're leading a small team or navigating an enterprise, join me to explore what real leaders do to make an impact. Let's find out what it takes to turn vision into reality. In this episode, I have a great chat with electrical engineer and company director Vai Rane. Vai grew up in India, moved to New Zealand as a teenager, studied there and moved to Australia several years ago. Welcome, Vi.
Thank you, Craig. Great to be here.
Yeah, great to see you. And I understand you recently been promoted?
Yes, I have been. I got a discreet phone call a couple of months ago from our group director, and I was like, shit, what have I missed now? And I had all these reports, like Business Insights reports, up on my screen, ready to answer all the productivity questions, sales, this and that. And he's like, "Oh, this is just to congratulate you on your promotion." So it was a really good surprise.
So you're worried about nothing?
Yes, I was worried about nothing.
So speaking of that, so you've had a very interesting career. I know you were born in India and you moved to New Zealand, and you've done a lot of things. You joined Beca in New Zealand, but really don't know all that much about your prior history. So we'll unpack some of that today. Just to start things off, your first job or an early job, what was something that really stood out in that? Did your first jobs, it might have been your first job out of university, what was that like?
My first real job was at KFC as a student.
It's not unusual though, is it?
It's not. But I had to answer 74 questions, do a quiz for 74 questions at KFC before I got the job. And I'm like, is this going for a manager job or something like that? But no, it was for just a, burger assembler.
How old were you then?
15.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're still at school, obviously. Yeah.
Absolutely. So it was the basic job for a student. I was new to the country in New Zealand.
Right.
It taught me a lot of things about people and how to treat people that are they're obviously strangers, but you'd still treat them with respect and look after them, and good customer service. What does that look like? So when I used to do the drive-through orders, we had a timer up on the window, and our target was 15 seconds.
That you had to answer, was it?
No, you got to serve them at the window within 15 seconds. Wow. They place the order at the microphone, and from that time, the timer goes, and at the window, they need to be out by 15 seconds. That's a pretty short amount of time. Yeah. So what I would do was entertain them at the microphone, get their order, entertain them at the microphone so that I can assemble the burger here or pack their order, chicken, whatever. And then when they drive from the microphone to the window, their order is ready. So I was like the shortest drive-through server of the KFC in Royal Oak in Auckland.
Wow.
So little things, but that job taught me the basics of good work ethics, from cleaning the table to making potato gravy to coating the chicken to cleaning the fries. It's about the dedication you need to put to every task. So I quite enjoyed that because I met a range of people, which was quite cool. And it was the freedom that I got as a 15-year-old to explore the world on my own. So, yes, I would say my current job is kind of similar. Not making burgers, but still serving customers and clients with their needs consistently.
Did you have any good leaders in those days? It sounds like you enjoyed it, or was that more you taking the initiative than leaders helping you?
I had a really tough manager. Yeah. She really treated me like I didn't know how to assemble a burger. So I got a big telling off on day one as to I didn't know that the burger buns had to be upside down when you're assembling a burger. So the bottom goes on top when you're assembling it. Who knows that? And apparently you're supposed to know all the burger types and what goes in each burger on day one. So she's like, what is this? You don't know any of this. And so that night, I stayed up till 1 a.m. and learnt off all the burger recipes. Next day, put me on the burger station. She's like, oh my God. I'm like, yeah, I take feedback on board. She was very impressed. But from that day on, she never put me on the burger station. And then she's like, okay, now you're on the chicken. I'm like, what's a thigh? What's a wing? I have no idea. They all look the same. So I had to learn parts of a chicken after that. So, but again, it's about that feedback loop and taking that on board. And I wouldn't say she was a good coach, but she gave me some direct feedback. But it's about what you do with it.
She probably wasn't much older than you, was she?
She was quite experienced, but it's the nature of the, I guess, environment.
All right. Well, that's an interesting start. All right, so let's go back to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Mumbai, in India.
Mumbai, okay.
Yes, yeah. So I'm from India, and then all my family is there, extended family, like my parents' side, my mom's side. I'm the only child.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm not spoiled, is what I like to say. My cousins, my husband, my daughter think otherwise.
Yeah.
But that's a different story.
Okay. And what did your parents do?
So my parents in India, my dad's an engineer, and he worked in a machine production plant.
Yeah.
So a bottling plant. They would bottle alcohol, and he's a teetotaler. So he would get all this free alcohol at home, and he would just pass it on to relatives. So I don't know about my dad, but my relatives loved his job. And so he's an engineer and worked in that for a long time. Actually, since I was born, he was in that job. So his career was really good in India. And then my mum, commerce background, she used to work in the bank.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And that was all in Mumbai?
That was all in Mumbai.
Right.
Yes. And at the age of 15, when I was 15, we decided to move to New Zealand.
What was the I suppose the push behind the move?
Yeah, so my dad is quite, like, everybody's ethical, but he really hates corruption.
Right.
And so corruption in India is quite open, and common man can feel it. So when I was in my year 10, he got a phone call telling him that we know that your daughter goes to this school, she is in year 10, blah, blah, blah. And year 10 results or marks matter a lot for future studies, right? So this guy was telling him everything about me, what time I go to school, what time I come back.
Jeez.
And he said, how many marks do you want your daughter to have? 85%, these match rupees. 90%, these many rupees. So my dad was like, one, how do you know about our family so much? And two, if you can offer a common person, an invitation like that, and middle-class family, imagine the people who are filthy rich and you know, they can easily afford this. So what's genuine and what's not? So that kind of put him off a bit, and he's like, okay, that's it. Like, you know, this has come to us now, so it reached our level, which is unacceptable. So he said, I want a really different life for us as a family, and the opportunity to migrate to New Zealand opened up at the same time, and we applied. So at the age of, when they were in their mid-40s, they decided to leave their well-established jobs and careers for my future. So it was quite a drastic move to leave their, aging parents behind, family behind, was a big move. So the three of us extracted ourselves and moved to Auckland in December 2000.
Right.
Yeah.
So I can understand, but one of my questions is the influence your parents had on you. Obviously, your father had a strong ethical stream running through him. Are there any other things that your mother and father, the takeaways that you have, how they've influenced you over the years?
Oh, absolutely. Look, I mean, my parents have been quite a big influence on me. Dad's always been that strong ethical support system for me. Mum's very tenacious. You know, she is very gutsy, very gritty. She'll stick to it, never gives up. So the combo has been quite good, and that came in quite handy with our move when we moved to New Zealand. A new country, new people. So, and they're starting from scratch. I'm going to a new school. There's a lot of change happening. But that experience, we were all in it together. As a family. We stuck to it. At the age of 15, I was finding jobs for my parents, and at the time there was no Seek or anything like that. You had to apply, go through papers and apply. So I would go to the paper, like newspaper agency, get the paper every day and tick off jobs that they can apply and stuff like that. So that kind of brought us very close as a family. But we all wanted to succeed with this move. So the first 6 months or so, my mum didn't have a job. So that was quite a hard thing for her to deal with. My dad was working at a petrol station because, it was like 1 week where we were like, okay, if we don't get a job in this week, we got to go back, and our family doesn't like giving up.
I was about to say that you would have come over with just your savings and
absolutely,
and they would soon burn out.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there was that 1 week where we said, okay, this is it. This is the week. If we can't pull through this week, we're going back.
Wow.
So, and I'm like, shit, okay, we got to apply for all these jobs. So I got the paper one day and I applied, and I was good with technology, with computers and stuff like that. But I applied for all the jobs from A to Z, no matter what their qualifications, whether they matched or not. I applied for all the jobs. We're going to get a reject anyway. So might as well. I had all the time in the world, right? So I did that. But my dad did work at a petrol station for 6 months to make sure, he can feed the family. And just seeing that dedication towards us is quite powerful. And as a 15, 16-year-old, you're kind of still young, but you're kind of in your forming years of the view of the world. And that was quite a hard-hitting sort of experience for us as a family. But for me, in my teenage years, when I saw both my parents showing some tremendous tenacity when it came to that decision and sticking to it and making that successful. After working at the petrol station and stuff like that, my dad got a job in a production firm with the biotech production firm, and he moved up the ranks over there, and he retired from there. So after that, it was fine, but the first year or so, it was quite tricky. Mum got a job in water care, which was Metro Water at the time, changed names a few times, and then she's still working at water care. So she's been there for 24 years.
Wow.
But the initial years is always something that we look back on as a family, and have learned a lot. And when you're low in your life, I go back to those sort of instances or those days and say, it's not that bad, So you can still see the positive in the lows.
So when you moved to Auckland?
Yes, we moved to Auckland.
And where did you go to school in Auckland?
I went to Epsom Girls Grammar School. I came from a co-ed school in India and moved to a girls' school. I found it was quite a big shock for me going to a only girls' school. I was surprised with what lengths girls can go to catch a bus with the Auckland Boys Grammar School and things like that. But it was a really good experience, some really good teachers. Very different education system. We're not used to calculators in India in school, and I was given a calculator on day one.
So would you have to use like
log tables and things like that.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know times
I went to
tables.
school.
Yeah, and times tables, you just know them.
Yeah.
There's no calculator.
Yeah,
So I found math, science, physics quite a breeze when I moved to schools.
Especially with a calculator.
Especially with a calculator. I'm like, this is so easy. But the subjects that I found hard were English and biology, because it was the local stuff. And the English was more like, let's watch a movie, and now we watched The Great Gatsby. Like, I know it's a great movie, but it's got such a lasting impact on me. Every time I hear the word Gatsby, I'm like, So we've watched that movie 30 or 40 times, and we would pause and play to just, evaluate every scene to death. So it's like, this is not English. And then we had to there was one activity I remember very clearly. We had to go to a park one evening, and you sit on a bench and you observe what's going on in the park, and you write that in a creative way. I'm like, how am I going to write a little boy is kicking the football in a creative way? I just don't get it.
Yeah.
So we're quite used to factual stuff, and I found the creative bit of English and the local stuff in biology a little bit tricky, but the other subjects were a breeze. So,
and were you taught English in India?
Yes, so I went to an English medium school. So in terms of composing sentences or grammar, I was quite good at it. Okay. But the creative piece, not my thing. Yeah. So it was quite funny, because even to date, I do proofread some of my colleagues' emails who have English as their first language. So that's quite funny.
Yes. You sound like my daughter. She's... if I send the wrong thing, grammatically incorrect, she'll remind me. Were you into sports? What did you do as a young girl at school? Yeah,
so at school I played throwball, which is a different game.
Was that in India or New Zealand?
In India, and that is similar to volleyball, but it's
I've seen it. They sort of catch it and then
throw it within 5 seconds or 3 seconds or something like that. So I represented the school for that game, and I captained it.
A blend of volleyball and netball.
Yes, correct. Yeah. Okay. So which was quite fun.
Right.
I represented school for that sport, but then we had to move here. So and as socially, I would play badminton in India as well. So I still play badminton on weekends, on Saturdays. Right. I enjoy that. We enjoy that quite a bit, actually. We've got my husband, my family, and some friends here who meet every Saturday.
Oh, lovely.
And play a bit of badminton, which is quite fun. And it's not weather dependent because it's indoor here. So. And
what outside of sports as a teenager, what did you do? Did you any other recreational activities or things that you like to do? Hobbies?
I was apparently I was really good at arts. And not anymore, because I've married a creative husband.
Oh, right.
So he doesn't think I'm that good at arts.
A critic, yeah.
But I actually won a national award for arts when I was in year 4 and year 6. And there was a Japanese art competition where I also won an award.
So year 6 you would have been in India.
Correct.
And year 4 you were
in India.
India.
Well.
India. Year 4.
Yeah. So both those awards were in India.
Yeah.
But when I show those paintings to my husband, he's like, "Oh yeah, okay."
It's a pretty big country to win a national competition.
Absolutely, absolutely, and it was a long list of silver medalists and whatnot. But it was quite satisfying. So when my husband pulls out his creative side, I'm like, you can't just bag me all the time, because I do have these 2 medals.
Did he win any national competitions?
He probably did.
He probably did.
I don't ask that question. So.
And university, where did you go to university?
So I went to university in Auckland. Mm-hmm. I went to Auckland Uni.
Yep.
After Epsom goes, I always wanted to be an engineer.
Mm-hmm. Why? Because of your father?
So my dad's an engineer, obviously, and I am the only girl. I'm the only child.
Yep.
But even in my extended family, like my first cousins, they're all boys.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm the only girl child in the family.
Yeah. Okay.
So my uncles are all engineers. My cousins, or elder cousins, were all doing engineering. So I've kind of played cricket growing up. I've done all the boy things. So I was a tomboy when I was a kid. So I love my maths and science.
Yep.
So, and love problem solving. So that was a clear choice for me, that I wanted to do engineering.
Yep.
I wasn't sure what engineering. I wanted to do software, then biomed, but I learned that there's some dissection of animals, so I was like, I scrapped that immediately, and then settled on electrical, which I actually loved some of the power systems papers that I did in my education as well, so I chose that.
Okay. And what engineering discipline was your father?
He was a production engineer,
Okay.
so that's quite a different sort of stream. He was really good at engineering drawing. I wasn't.
Okay. So you went to Auckland Uni, did electrical engineering. After you graduated, I imagine you got yourself a job pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
Well, funnily enough, I started as a graduate at Beca.
Becca, okay.
At Beca,
oh, right.
And I am also currently at Beca. So this has been my only job after I graduated. So I've been at Beca for 17 years.
Right.
Yeah, getting a graduate job at Beca was a big thing.
Yeah.
So I was able to score
that. Was it competitive in those days?
Yes.
I think it's competitive.
It's all the time, yeah. And as a grad, I think you find that quite overwhelming.
Yeah.
We're about 4,500 people at Beca, and we have offices, obviously New Zealand being the main home, offices in Australia, Southeast Asia, being an electrical engineer, I started in the power section,
right,
or the power team, delivering projects for power clients like transmission utilities or generation clients.
Yeah.
So I did a bit of technical work in the first couple of years. Very quickly, I got some small opportunities to project manage small packages of work just based on my organizational skills. I had no sort of formal training in project management. So I said, okay, I'll try these. Those opportunities came up and I said, yep, I'll try these with my coach, and flourished. So I enjoyed talking to clients, talking to the team members to deliver the projects or the packages, which were quite small, so 30K packages or something like that. And then because I loved it, I said, okay, I can give this a go. I got my first job as a project manager, which was about 250K. I'm like, oh wow, this is a massive responsibility now. So I put all my effort into it.
So that was the fee value.
That was 250K as the fee value. Still pretty small, but for me,
so it'd be about a $5 million job.
Yeah. But for me, it was quite a big responsibility as a second year.
Oh,
two years out of uni, given that responsibility. But again, I had a really strong coach and a mentor who was able to, answer any questions or guide me through some of the challenging conversations with the clients. So again, I developed a really good relationship with the client on that project, which made it a lot easier delivering the job. So I enjoyed that as well. I actually left Beca after that and went back to India to get married. So for 9 months, I took a bit of a break to sort my life out. But through those 9 months, we thought, we might want to start a family or explore some career opportunities now while we are young. So we said, okay, New Zealand seems to be the first option because those doors are already open for us. So we said, okay, let's go back to New Zealand. So so I came back and joined Beca and did more of the project management, project delivery type projects, moving more from single discipline to multidiscipline projects.
So what prompted the move to Australia? How did that?
My daughter was born in 2012. She was a year old, and we thought before she gets settled into schools and friendships and all that kind of stuff, which is going to bind us to a particular location or a city or a country, why don't we try an OE for a couple of years? So something different, right?
Yep.
My parents live live in Auckland, but moving at the time when you have a young child who's 1 year old is quite challenging. We had to wait for childcare here for about 14 months. There was a wait list.
Yeah.
So we had some priorities quite clear. Without the childcare, we are moving because we don't have support system here.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I was going to work full time. So, so we decided that this is the time. These 2 years is something that we want to really target and try Australia and see what it looks like. My husband is an industrial designer, and there's not great opportunities for that particular discipline in New Zealand. Have you? So we thought, okay, let's try Australia from his perspective. We chose Sydney because, one, I had been to Melbourne and it's very similar weather to Auckland, and we love the water. So my husband and me love the water. So we thought, okay, let's try Sydney. It's going to be only for a couple of years, so might as well, right? So, and Ria, that's our daughter. She's 12 now.
Right.
Just gone to high school, so a big transition year for her. We are sort of paddling our way through it.
So the overseas experience is extending now, isn't it?
It
At
is.
least till the end of high school, I imagine.
It is. And she's involved in quite a bit of other extracurricular activities like netball. So she plays representative netball,
Wow.
which is quite competitive and something she really enjoys, and she's formed really good friendships through that sport. So we're quite happy for her. So if us as a family, we've kind of found our sort of rhythm here, and that's what's made us
after 10 years
stay back. But it took us about 4 or 5 years, to be honest. That's when we bought our first place here.
Yeah. So, your observation of leaders, what do you think makes a good leader?
I think I am actually very big on learning by influence, right? So I've been privileged to work with many leaders, and I'm more sort of looking for people or looking up to leaders who are genuine, approachable, even though they're leaders or have gone up through the ranks, are still connected with the juniors in the team. They know what's going around on the floor, right? So rather than sitting up in their glass office, they're connected. So I really respect those kind of leaders, and I've seen a lot of those.
What have you noticed has been a couple of things that tend to be the biggest shortcomings for people who have got the potential but they don't quite get there?
I think it's about chasing success sometimes.
Yeah.
And I am a big believer in you need to build your capability every day. You know, it's not that once you've achieved a title, that's it. You know, success will come, but you are chasing capability and building that. I think once you have that sort of mindset, you know, without the outcome in mind, it's quite a different sort of approach to the way you do things or the way you carry on with your activities day to day. Also, feedback is a really important thing, and it's not about giving feedback or asking for feedback. It's asking for specific feedback, and timely feedback is a key thing. I personally have found that to be quite useful. Everyone's not perfect, and it's about how you amend yourself along the way. So sometimes I feel people aren't as forthcoming as they ask for feedback, they might not take it on board or act on it.
Okay.
So yes, asking for feedback is one, but what you do with it is the most important thing.
Okay. What about things like vision? Where do you see vision and getting people to rally around that vision? How do you see that sort of playing out as far as leaders go? What makes that work is what I'm asking, because a lot of people have vision. It's about taking the team with you. What do you think is the secret there, or the way to make that happen?
I think the first thing is to be very clear about what your vision is.
Okay.
Clearly communicate what it is, how you've come up with it, because there are times when it could be just, you know, formulated by yourself, or was it a team effort? Because when there is a team effort, there's people buying already. So it's sharing the vision and the process that you've taken to come up with it, because there must be some thought process that has gone in it. And then how we as a team can work collaboratively to achieve that vision. So once it's a shared vision, then it becomes quite a powerful thing, rather than I want to achieve this. We want to achieve this is a lot more powerful than the I bit.
So how does a leader go about getting that shared vision? What have they got to do?
So in some of the discussions, or in my experience, it has been a lot of teamwork, brainstorming with varied levels of input. So, you know, sometimes there are people who would just engage with senior people within the business, but it's about going right down to the juniors, intermediates, and getting the buy-in across the whole cross section. So it is quite important that all levels of the organization or your team buy into that vision to begin with, and then it's about how each one of us, or the work that we do on an everyday basis, how is that going to achieve that vision? So there needs to be that connection between the purpose and what they're doing every day. So if you make that clear to them, there's that, you know, teamwork associated with achieving that purpose or that vision. So once you provide that clarity, provide them the structure around how you can do it, some specific points where we can measure that and how we are tracking progress along the way. Do we need to tweak our pathway? Or again, that feedback loop is quite important. But helping them through the process, being available to, or accessible for them to actually do those check-ins, because, you know, as leaders, we all are very busy. But making time for people to access your ideas, your feedback, your input, or just being there to be a sounding board for them, can be quite powerful than you actually think. And it's just that reassurance that they might need sometimes to be able to, you know, give them that license to do something, which is
that sense
quite
of ownership.
bold.
They feel they own it as much as anybody.
Absolutely. They need to own it to be able to achieve that shared vision.
Okay, no, that's really good. And what's a sign of a good leader when things don't go so well? You know, you might have had a tough year. There's suffered a loss, lost some people, major projects go awry, or, you know, things like that, which happens in every business. And I think that's a reality that some people, you know, you often hear leaders talking about all the wonderful things. What makes a good leader when it's not going so well?
I know that I've been involved in a few poor performing jobs or projects in my career at Beca, so I can shed some light on that.
I'm sure you can.
So a couple of years after moving to Australia, I was involved in two rail projects, and it was traction power sort of services for two major Sydney rail traction substations. New sort of sector that we are working in. Fee was like 5 million for both jobs, which I would say CapEx was about 60, 70 million across both jobs.
Pretty skinny fee.
Yeah. We didn't do well. Learning lots. There was a lot of new standards. It was a completely different ball game working in a different sector. It was becoming quite adversarial on a daily basis. It was in short, it was not a pleasant experience. And to top it all, we were losing a lot of money. So a lot of pressure internally from management when these two jobs were going, and I was the project manager for both of them. Wasn't a fun time, to be honest, and it was almost for about 2.5, 3 years that these projects went on for. a lot of churn that we saw because of the nature of the project. People leaving the business, people leaving the projects, whatever have you. It was just.
What about on the client side? With a bit of turnover
there was a lot of people turnover on the client side as well. So nothing's going right. Yeah.
Quite a toxic environment.
Very toxic environment. Every day was a struggle. If I think back on those two jobs, at the time, they were very, very tough. I will never forget those jobs in my life. If I didn't have those jobs, I wouldn't be the person I am today. You know, those are the jobs that have really shaped me, my thinking, the way I approach or deal with clients, talk to clients. We made a lot of loss on, like tons of loss, significant loss on those jobs. And another opportunity came up with the same client, same end client. Yep. And because we apparently did these jobs really well to the client was happy with the technical solution.
They won some awards too, didn't
they? They did. Yeah. And so we got another opportunity. I had a blast. We delivered significant profit, more than planned, and everything was celebrated about it. My life. So everyone can have those challenging situations. They will. Problem jobs. It's a normal thing. When you're in it, you're probably really, like you're really down. But when you're out of it, I've learned so much, and I wouldn't change a thing. And I've learned so much by just coming on the other side of it. Feel so much more confident about making decisions, having tough client conversations, and being very open with clients about things. So I've actually enjoyed that process that I've been through, and apply bits of it even today. So even though I'm not working on, DNC or rail projects, there's so many things that I learned along the way.
It's not easy, and to be a leader, you've got to take some knocks. I don't think any leader that's worth their salt hasn't taken any knocks. But then applying those lessons learned and then going back into the arena, as Teddy Roosevelt would say. I know you're on the Australian board. Be interested in that, what you do there, and how you see your role as a director of the company. And also, is there anything outside interest that you have professionally as well, either with a volunteer organisation, another professional body?
Yeah. So look, I'm a mum first. So in my free time, I'm very busy with my daughter's sports activities, right? So I'm a passionate cheerleader from the sidelines of a netball court.
Do you ever get banned and say,
Sometimes I get pulled up by the umpire and they say, you can't cheer your own child, you've got to cheer the whole team. I'm like, okay, gotcha.
So you take that feedback on board?
I sometimes. But yeah, look, that's quite hectic, and she's going through her formative years, the teenage years. So I really want to be there. I don't want to miss a bit of it.
Okay.
I'll share a small snippet. A couple of years ago, she's been playing netball for 5 years, but a couple of years ago she played netball for Lane Cove Club.
Okay.
And I didn't see a single game the whole season, right? I rocked up at the presentation, and presentation day, and she got the Player of the Season award.
Oh, dear.
And I was like, oh my God, what have I missed?
Yeah.
So that was 3 years ago. I don't want to miss that anymore. So I make it a point that I'm there when I absolutely can. Don't miss a single game. Get told off by the umpires, but that's okay. But that is absolute priority for me. And it's only recently that I've kind of come to realize how important it is to prioritize your own life outside of work. And that particular incident when she got the Player of the Season award was a really hard-hitting moment for me, which changed my perspective. So, in my free time, my first priority is to support my daughter's sports activities. Australia board hat is one hat which I absolutely enjoy. Thoroughly enjoy working alongside some really, really, good people, good leaders within the Beca business. Very genuine about their thoughts and very open. It's a very constructive discussion, and there aren't any facades, which is really good, and that's how I like to play it. I wear my heart on the sleeve. I'll call a spade, as you know, and others are doing the same. So, which is a really good environment for me to express my views. The first couple of meetings, I was like, I'm just going to observe on how this thing goes. And then the third meeting, I was like, oh, I was actually thinking what he or she said already. So, and then the fourth meeting, I'm like, stuff this. I'm going to bring it on. So from then on, I was so it took me about 3 meetings to warm up.
Yep.
Being completely honest, because I hadn't had any formal training or anything like that in those scenarios. But I've been on the board for 4 years and love it. Absolutely love it. Be it the board meetings, the prep, having the side conversations between board meetings, the actions, developing the Australian strategy has been quite a cool experience to be part of. And now obviously implementing it is also quite fabulous. So that is something that I hadn't seen myself doing. Maybe when I did electrical engineering, to be honest, but that's something that I'm very privileged to have got the experience or exposure to. And when I first moved to Sydney, I was quite involved in Women in Engineering, the Sydney division. I was on the committee for
with Engineers
2 or 3.
Australia.
That's with Engineers Australia. That was for 3 years when I first moved, and the main purpose of doing that was to build a bit of a network here.
Yep.
Get to know people in the industry, and that was a really good way of doing it.
Yep.
But there was a lot of time in the evenings, and my daughter was going through year 5, like she was 5 and 6. So after that, I've kind of cut back on it a bit to help her. So I got involved in helping out in maths classes at her school, so she could see me a bit more present with her. So I'm quite passionate about STEM subjects and promoting that for girls. So that was another way of
That's
me doing
great too.
that.
That's a way you can actually get involved and do something rather than people saying what needs to be done. You're in there doing it.
Absolutely. And now I'm actually on the judging panel for Engineers Australia Excellence Awards for the people category. So it doesn't involve my evenings, but there's that the selective chunks in the year that I can still give back to the organisation that helped me form a bit of a network when I first moved to a new country.
Okay.
Yeah.
In business, I think we're moved quite rightly to a more ethical setting, a more inclusive setting in business, but there's always that thing called the bottom line that you've got to meet as well, otherwise you don't have a business. So how do you balance that, that ethical setting with, because we could do lots and lots of things in business, but we can't always get everything that we want done outside of improving the bottom line. How do you balance those two things?
Look, it's always a tough one. But I think again, it comes down to how we go about it, right? What's the decision-making process, and is it the long-term view that we're going to take, or the short-term view, right? For a business like ours, and with my director hat on, it will need to be the long-term view, whilst we get the operational license. The operational performance needs to be there in order for us to grow. So, but there's a difference between governance and management. So when I'm in some of those board meetings, the discussions are quite different around. We've got to lift ourselves out of the management or operational issues. But when we balance, when the decisions come, we are here to run a business at the end of the day, and there are going to be tough calls. People come first. it matters to how people feel and how we deal with those situations with our people. So I'm of the opinion of you need to be as open as you possibly can of the situation with people. But again, talk to them about why the decision is being made.
Yeah.
The why really puts context around the calls that are being made, right? So transparency and the reasoning for the decision making and sharing that with people is very, very important, and helps you make some of the harder calls. And sometimes you just don't have a choice, but in the process you don't have to destroy relationships. You can do it in ways that you safeguard the business as well as the relationship. So that it is a very thin line, fine line that you're running when you're making some of the tough calls. But when you're running a business, the performance definitely prevails. But the way you make people feel along the way when you're making the tough call should also be considered.
I think it goes back to that piece you were saying before, particularly with strategy. If people feel they've got buy into the strategy and they own the strategy, they can see when the business is deviating from that. You can get them back on the strategy and ethically how that works. So then the calls become a little bit clearer.
Yeah.
They might make it easier, but they become clearer. What you've got to do. How would you describe your leadership style?
I strongly believe in values-based leadership. Okay. I have certain principles in life, and some of these are leading by example, demonstrating personal values and being transparent about them, trying things outside my comfort zone, as I've touched on before, so we can learn from real experiences, actively seeking feedback. So these are the principles to date that have helped me discover myself, understand my strengths, my weaknesses, which I wasn't aware of when I started my professional career 17 years ago, right? So I've grown immensely as an individual through people that I've met, clients that I serve, mentors or coaches that I work alongside, the teams that have helped me deliver the projects that I deliver, and the colleagues that help me celebrate those successes. So it's a team game, to be honest, and I focus on getting the whole team behind rather than just thinking about what it means for me.
Yeah.
So it's but if you have those behaviors clearly outlined and set, and that's what you really live by, people will see that, so you lead by example. Leadership to me is about having a very clear vision and then empowering others to achieve the best performance, through creating opportunities for them, being them for them, mentoring, to create that collaborative environment, which in turn drives a very high performance culture, right? So, and then achieving that shared goal becomes so much easier. That's what leadership is to me.
Okay.
But very values-based rather than this is what you've got to do kind of stuff.
Well, how do you think others see you as a leader? Do they see you the same way as you see yourself as a leader?
I would hope so. But again, look,
have you ever had any feedback from people?
Lots of people. Of people.
So what's some of the feedback they've given you?
So one of the feedback that I received in my sort of intermediate sort of years where I was going through those tough jobs is controlling how I react to certain things in a more visible manner. So I'm quite an emotional person. So I would say things as they are.
Especially if something untoward happens.
And I would really back a team member, or like if I feel very strongly about it, I would say that. The feedback that I've received is maybe think about it for 3 seconds before you actually say it. But that's fine. That's so, feedback. And I've tried to practice that,
Okay.
and sometimes I would rephrase the feedback, and which has really helped me.
Yeah.
Again, I used to write a lot of constructive feedback emails, or direct emails, so I would sleep on them overnight before I send an email. So, and 9 times out of 10, I've rewritten the email or deleted the email. So
it's amazing how it looks in the morning once you've looked at it again.
Absolutely.
And that's sort of the anxiety or the steam's gone out. But
absolutely.
Yeah.
The other piece of feedback which I am very consciously working on is being available. So I'm very busy, and everybody is very busy. But if you don't make time for people to come and ask you or have a coffee with you, have a casual conversation with you, people can't connect with you in the normal way that a person connects with each other. So I've found that to be quite powerful. So I've created time in my calendar to spend time with the team members, and that has been quite good for me. But obviously for them as well as what I would like to think.
It also creates a little bit of discipline too, because it makes you do that because you allocated time, and then your team knows that, Vai creates that time, so then I can talk to her and we can work out a mutual time to do that rather than being ad hoc all the time and reactionary. It's more proactive.
And I've said to myself, like 3 times out of the 5 days, I'm going to have lunch with the team in the lunchroom.
Okay.
No matter what. So these are the little things that you can do, but you get to know the team, and you're not just interacting with seniors in the business or anything. You get down to the grassroots levels and understand what's happening in the business, when you hear the real things, right? Which is quite important.
Okay. Excellent. How do you see the industry that you're in evolving over the next 5 to 10 years?
So over the last 6 years, I've been fortunate enough to understand the landscape of the energy industry and how the energy transition that is now happening in Australia is taking shape. Right. So obviously Australia has the best combination of the world's wind, solar, energy resources, and enormous sources of biomass for zero emissions chemical industry. Second, we also have an abundance of minerals that require huge amounts of energy to process. But obviously there's a high cost of exporting renewable energy and hydrogen, which makes it economically logical for these industries to be located in Australia or closer to the energy source. So, in other words, more of Australia's minerals and other energy-intensive products should be processed in Australia. It's a multi-sector opportunity that is in front of Australia, and a great chance for us to become an energy superpower. It's now about the action, right? The tangible steps that we need to make this happen. But the biggest thing that is in front of us is the need for speed. So, 2030 is only 6 years away, and the coal-fired plants are going to close soon. So how do we make sure that we have these renewable generation sources coming online, and getting to consumers in the most effective, efficient way
and
reliable way without actually having blackouts, right? So that's the challenge, and the whole world is going through this transition, but Australia has some unique natural resources that we can make this opportunity a real sort of booster to the economy of Australia. So how do we, and the next 5 to 10 years is quite critical.
What do we need to do to change, to get that moving faster? What needs to happen?
It's those policy settings which need to change, because we haven't had a transition like this, or building or rewiring the nation like this happen in
So is that
decades.
a government policy settings?
The government policy settings, yep. And removing the roadblocks for some of the planning approval places, approval processes take forever.
Yeah.
The regulatory approvals take forever.
Yeah.
So how do we streamline some of those processes to be able to get to the faster transition? Resources is also, or talent, specialist talent is also a big
skills to do it
is a big shortfall.
Yeah.
And that's where we need to form some strategic partnerships and whatnot. But it's a global challenge.
Okay.
We don't have those.
So getting
skills.
the policy framework right, getting the planning more streamlined and effective, and getting the right skills.
Yep.
Okay. But what advice would you give to a younger person who's thinking of maybe getting into engineering and making a difference on the first steps and what to expect in a career journey?
Look, I think it is, for me, it has been opportunities come up and they will present themselves to everyone, right? It's about what you do with them.
Okay.
And they will always be, always be something which doesn't fit right with every opportunity. It might not be in the same location or in the right location, the timing, the nature of the work, the people, the team that you're working with. So I would say step out of your comfort zone and be courageous. It's not an easy ride. So the most that you can control about anything in life is yourself.
Yeah. So
bring your full self to the work, the universities, the schools every day. And it's okay to be vulnerable. That's how you learn from actually learning from others.
Yeah.
And saying, I actually don't know this. Can you please help me with this? It's okay to say that. Ask for help. And if you think that something's not for you, or if you don't know it, or it's too much for you, or you want to be able to do justice to it, ask for help or say no. It's okay to say no. Sometimes people think saying no is a career limiting move. And this is something that I've learned recently as well. Saying no is okay with justification, right? Yeah. And when you express yourself quite openly, those roadblocks might get removed for you. So you don't know what's in store unless you express yourself. So, be courageous, step out of your comfort zone, bring your whole self to wherever you are, work, school, university. And the moment you stop learning, which I said before, the moment you stop learning, you stop growing. So don't chase success. Focus on being more capable or becoming more capable every day, and the success will come. So that's a mindset shift. Don't chase titles. Don't chase promotions. It's about keeping yourself happy and how you feel about your everyday and your journey and your career progression. That's going to be far more satisfying than any promotion. So I would say be courageous and bold. It's not an easy ride, but it's a fun ride.
Yeah, it's rewarding.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's great advice, Vi. Some real gems in there. Being courageous. I really think that's right. That's a real mature approach. It's difficult for a younger person chasing that next promotion or whatever it might be, but by growing and making yourself more valuable, and you're actually rewarding yourself on the inside as much as other people noticing you more value, the opportunities come.
Yeah. And also and when I was in the earlier part of my career, and the nature of the job was sort of technical or project delivery. As you move more client facing or business development, you need to shift your focus from ticking off your to-do lists or task list to am I creating value, or am I bringing value?
Yeah.
And that's quite a different focus. So you can still feel very accomplished every day, even if you've done one good thing, not 10 different things on your to-do list. So as you progress through your career, you need to always ask yourself, what value am I bringing to this conversation, this meeting, this project, this board meeting? And it can be quite rewarding compared to ticking off lists on your task
What's
list.
important rather than what's urgent.
Yeah. It's not about prioritizing your schedule, but schedule your priorities.
Yeah.
No,
that's great advice. Great advice. Well, Vi, thank you very much. Really enjoyed that conversation. And as I said, it's a conversation with leaders that I think are making an impact and influencing and making enormous change for the betterment of society, the country, and obviously the people they work with. So thank you.
Oh, I absolutely loved it, and it was a self-reflecting piece for me, to be honest. So I've thoroughly enjoyed it too. No, thank you for having me.
No worries.